Here we go.
G'day fans and welcome back to another exciting episode of Rip It Off the Card. We have barely been on for milliseconds and already good old Ange has joined us. Hi. I reckon he just sits there just sweating, waiting for the intro video to go through. What do you reckon, Mr. Aaron?
I think you're right. We've already got a few people here. Do you know, every week when we start, we're doing the countdown. It reminds me of Back to the Future where the doc is looking at things on Marty's video recorder and he says, in the future, no wonder the president is an actor. And I look at the setup we've got with like my laptop here sitting in my spare room broadcasting, and it kind of, those words always go through my head every week.
Love it. And you can clearly tell when you're reaching the heights of popularity where Gavin has said, g'day there, Mr. Dags. He's Dr. Dags. Oh, there you go. He's completely ignored Aaron altogether. So sorry, dude, you just clearly aren't cutting the mustard anymore. So there you go. Oh, goodness. Having said that, Mark has said fellow Whovians. Well, that's definitely referring to you. So there you go. Very, very cool. As always, we have a gigantic episode ahead for you this evening. And here we go, Colin. Yes, the madness returns. It's only been less than a minute, and we're already losing our minds. The important thing we've got to bring up, so we said hello to Mr. Aaron. Of course, the cool thing is that last week in Aaron's store, we finally got to have the reopening, and tens of thousands of throbbing nerds, all COVID distanced and vaxxed and whatever, attended the shop, and it was complete and utter madness. Mr. Aaron, tell us all about how good it was.
That is a tad of an exaggeration, but there were a lot of people there. It was pretty good. There were points where people were hanging around on the footpath eating pizza because we had too many people in the shop, and then we had to order more pizza because all the pizza ran out. And then just as we were thinking about going home, another wave of nerds turned up. So we went, from 6 till 11:15. I think we finished up. No, 11:45 we got out of there, wasn't it? Something like that.
It was pretty. Mate. I mean, I was in the mood to just partay till the cows come home, even though I had to go back there the next day, as did you. The key thing was that the vibe was outstanding. It was really, really good. I know a lot of people who watching the show couldn't make it, but the good thing is that the store finally got to reopen with power and electricity, which was the most important thing. And plenty of dudes came along to celebrate. Sorry, go on. What was that?
So just a thank you for everyone that came along on the night and in the next couple of days, because I know a lot of people couldn't make it and still a few people have come in through the week. So I've caught up with Josh and Mark and a few other people, and a lot of people are looking forward to coming in on the weekend and catching up with Dags. So...
Mate, aside from Gavin who called me Dr. Dags, I mean, it's like people are pointing out when I'm working there so they don't turn up that day. But I tell you what, if you ever want to summarize how successful the party was, you cannot go past this picture of good old Curly. He's completely wasted. Pizza and soft drink. Oh, my God, it's the nerd's perfect world, isn't it? What do you reckon, mate?
Yes, he didn't recover too well. I think he fell down a couple of times during the night. You can always tell when Curly falls over because there is a huge crash and it sounds like something has smashed. But he was having as good a time as everyone. Him and Dicko both standing in the corner like having a drink.
I love it. It was an absolute... No, it was it was after months of being apart, it was really good to get everybody finally back together again and just talk nerdy stuff. Something we've been missing for a very long period of time. But the key thing is, though, fans, that the store is now open. So even though Friday nights are no longer a go, throughout the weekdays and, of course, the weekends, people are definitely encouraged to come along and just have a chat about the things that have been sort of playing on their minds for the past few months. And there's a lot's coming up. There's movies and TV shows and things that are still being announced. Even today, they mentioned that Weta Digital in New Zealand's being sold off. There's just stuff to talk about. So, which is very, very cool. And in fact, one of the most important segments that we get to bring back on the show, which has been absent for months, is the old writer of the week. And of course, we've got one. So what do you reckon of this? This is what you call, three heads only a mother could love. So what do you reckon, dude?
There we go. That's three really ugly Hawaiian shirts right there, isn't it? So, yeah, this was this Saturday or last Saturday? It all blends into...
This is when the power was out. And you can tell because we've had to stand in the doorway to let the sun light us up. Even the sun was going, oh, my God, do I have to? But no, seriously, though, we've got Mr. Mick Burrows, I think, in the middle there, wearing my head on his... Now, that's not a shirt he owns, by the way. For those who haven't seen this shirt before, it's actually in Aaron's store. And poor old Mick had to wear this. And it's like, how embarrassing is that? So you can see, that's it's clearly got dartboards written all over it, hasn't it? Some heads need to have darts.
You know what? that Hawaiian shirt is probably a COVID super spreader event right there.
Absolutely. No, it was awesome though that people did come in. As I said, this is when the power was off, but now that the power's back on again, we certainly encourage people to come along, and you too can all be writers, which is very, very cool. What happened? So Thomas said he missed his train. He'd been down in a couple of weeks with the public transport as well. Well, that's okay. Yeah, Friday was a very good night. A couple of people couldn't make it. Phil said he was a bit under the weather, which is a bit. Oh, hang on, wrong button. Sorry, he was a bit under the weather, couldn't make it. Colin couldn't make it, but see, we're still, the store is open, and the key thing is that we encourage everybody to turn up and have a good time, which is very, very cool. Very good. All right, so let us move on to the most important, or not the most important, one of the most important sections of the show, which of course is the treasure in the suburbs. Now, in recent weeks, we've sort of made a point of sort of showing some really large collections. Last week, we had Greg from America and all his props and, and his costumes, and that, like, completely filled his unit. And we wanted to ensure that people, that they know that it doesn't, this segment is not about who's got the biggest, who's got the best. So even a small collection can still make it onto this particular segment. So don't feel as though you've only got a couple of bookshelves worth of stuff that you're thinking, oh, I can't submit material to the show because it's just going to get overlooked. That's completely untrue, because tonight we've gone the complete opposite. And we've decided to bring in Mr. Jonathan Ruffle, who's from Sydney. And, of course, we're actually encouraging people to submit pictures of their collections to us. And Jonathan did just that. And his is only on 2 bookshelves. So this is probably something you want to talk about, Mr. Aaron, but you can kick us off with some Docky Who stuff.
So this is just part of his collection, but because we're looking at 70s Tom Baker Doctor Who, he sent these in for us to have a look at. And it is one of those things where this is an absolute quality collection. We'll look a bit more at the Dennis Fisher figures later, but these are impossible to get, specially boxed and in good condition. And he has an amazing set. And you can see around his collection, you've got littered there's an Australian promo poster there. Sticker there. You can see the ABC logo on the bottom of the Diamond Doctor Who logo, which is quite hard to get. And a cast card, again, we'll be looking at them later, the black and white cards the BBC used to send out to fans. So all of these things are incredibly hard to find, and lovely to see that someone's got them in Australia. You can see the Cyberman there, sort of just behind the Dalek in that picture. Well, the Cyberman is notorious for all the silver flaking off his cyber suit, because the material they used was particularly bad. And I've got a cyber suit here. I don't know if you can give me the screen. This is what they usually end up looking like. I've kept this one for the spare parts on it.
I thought you were holding up your underwear there, dude.
No, that's next week, the Y fronts. So yeah, to see them in such amazing condition, that is absolutely awesome. And he sent that in to just be on this show because we're doing 70s Doctor Who Tom Baker tonight. And anyone who's a Doctor Who fan will know they are incredibly rare items, and it's incredible to see all of them in one collection in Australia, which is fantastic.
I couldn't help but think when you were hanging up that thing, and I was thinking, what's he showing me? I was thinking, oh, dude, mate, it's like that was one hell of a party at the store. Were you actually wearing one of those things or what? I love this one. See, size matters not. Yeah, exactly right. I love that, Gavin. That is absolutely awesome. So yeah, very, very cool. It's like, okay, we've suddenly got a bit up. That's meant to be the late night version of the show. Is that right, dude?
I think so. After, what do they do? Big Brother After Dark or something? We can do riding after dark.
Rip it off the card after dark. Oh my God, how unbelievable is that? So there you go. And yes, Greg has mentioned there it's an awesome collection. So, but that just goes to show that you don't need to have the biggest and the best for these segments. If you sure it's good if you've got a lot of great quality, that's awesome. But it's just stuff that you're proud of and you want to sort of show it off, send it through to us. We'll slot it in. We've only got like 6 episodes left after tonight before we reach the end of the year. So there's certainly room available for people if they wish to check it out. So there you go. Any final words before we move on there, Mr. Aaron?
No, just what you were saying, reiterating, anyone who wants to send in anything for us to highlight. We've got just a couple of weeks left before we go on our first season break.
Very, very cool, Jonathan. Yep, cheers, guys. I love that when you say first season break, that implies we're going to be coming back for years to come. So, the pain of it all. All right, time for us to move on to something very, very exciting. Let's go for it. All good. Now, we got some exciting stuff, and we're going to kick this off with a video. It goes for a minute, so you're going to have to be a bit patient, kids, as this goes through. Now, the start of the video, due to the nature of the way it's been downloaded, is a little bit fuzzy and a little bit out of whack. So it's not, don't adjust your screens, kids. It's actually at our end, or actually at the video's end. So just be patient for about 10 seconds or 5 seconds, and we'll see how we go. Let's go. So what do you reckon, Mr. Aaron?
So Lego sure know how to announce a product, don't they? This, unfortunately, it leaked a couple of days ago that this was going to be the next Ultimate Collector Series Lego set. It's one that people have wanted for ages. It is the Imperial Walker, or All-Terrain Armored Transport, or ATAT for short. And it is in the same scale or the same series as the huge Star Destroyer, Millennium Falcon, and a couple of the other big ships. Now, people have wanted this for ages, and I think it's an awesome piece, and I will probably have to add it to my collection. But I do worry about when you put it together where you're going to display it, because it is an absolutely huge piece. But I tell you what, it is a very impressive Lego set. What do you think, Dags?
Yeah, I've got to say, I was very, very impressed, and I agree with Mick. Clearly, they've put a bit of money in that commercial, so this thing is not going to be cheap at all. I think what works in its favor is the fact that it's a mechanical device. Therefore, it doesn't have to be smooth and round and like it's not organic. It's clearly machine designed, built by parts which are mechanical, if that makes sense. So for that reason, yeah, I actually think it's actually very, very impressive. But unfortunately, it's the kind of thing little kids are going to look at it and go, "Oh, can I have one of those?" And then I'd say, "No way, Jose. This is definitely for the adults." But yeah, the detail on everything is outstanding. It's really, really groovy.
So I think it's going to retail at about 800. I don't know if that's 800 Australian or 800 American.
No, it's got to be American. There's nowhere in the world this would cost $800. I was thinking well into the 1,000 or two. So yeah.
Yeah, the other big ones have been in the thousands. I really love how it's got all the opening bits with different levels inside, because, you know, when they've done one at action figure scale and you can fit like 2 figures in it and stuff like that, it really was out of scale to how huge and immense they were in the movie. I mean, the foot of one crushed a snow speeder. So having the head that has just like got 2 figures in just seems really wrong when they've done toys. And you understand that because they've got to make it at a size that they can produce and have kids play with. But when they've done a Lego one at this scale, at least the action figures, you know, it can step on a Lego snow speeder at that scale, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, for those who are always wondering, in the movie, they were 22.5 meters high. I agree with you, Mark. Mortgage material, yeah, that'll actually happen. And I agree with Greg, 1,200 and then some. There's no way this would be less than $1,000 because the Millennium Falcon was a fortune. It's high end. I think there's like 6,000 pieces and whatever else. It's insane. And I just wanted to highlight this picture, and even the undercarriage. I mean, look at all those bits under there. It's like you spend half a week just putting that together. So
yeah, it's absolutely amazing. I know there's one of the pictures. I don't know if we were going to use it, where you get a little Lego screwdriver and you can there you go, and you can bolt and screw stuff in place, which is great because it means you can lock it and it won't fall over. Although this is one of those, imagine you finish it and you go, it's finished, and then you see it just topple over and smash.
James has mentioned whether it's overkill. It's a very good question to ask because it's clearly for a very limited market. People who are into Lego collecting will go nuts over this. And I agree with some of the comments that people who can't afford it will just like struggle big time. They'll go sell a kidney to pay for a bloody Lego model. And of course, like a lot of these things, when they first come out or when they first announce, people go completely gaga. It's like a new iPhone, for example. 3 years from now, people have moved on. They'll be waiting for the next big thing to come out. So, yeah, it's a good point. I guess it's up to the individual to determine whether it's a good investment or not. It is an investment, and whether you're going to physically build it or just buy it to resell it, it's hard to say. But you'd have to think that if someone has the Millennium Falcon, the AT-AT, and what's the other one, the Star Destroyer, still mint in box unopened, 10 years from now, they'll be commanding some massive price tags, I would think. But to be fair though, as you see from this picture, it does look pretty spectacular on a table. And if you do want more information, it can be found at.com. I couldn't help myself. It was just too good. So there you go. Oh, the vial is literally drooling. Oh my goodness. What does vial drool look like? Jeez. Oh my, what do you reckon of that, dude?
You know that the vial was actually disappointed this week because the trailer for the book of Boba Fett dropped, and he actually was waiting for the book of Babu Frick. And so there's some repercussions because of that we're going to have a look at later.
I did hear a rumor that the book of Babu Frick is a bit on the short side, so there you go. And here's a good question. It would make a good diorama. Yeah, you watch. Someone out there will get all 5 of them, because there were 5 that attacked the Rebel base on Hoth, and they'll try and build a diorama with 5 of them with 10,000 minifigs and that. I mean, that's like a $10,000 outlay once you've got all the bits and pieces. It's just completely insane. But good on them for doing it. The commercial was very well done, very well put together, lots of little Easter eggs in there, and we'll see who's the first one to sort of buy it and assemble it. And if one ends up in the store and you do have one for sale, for example, you'll be able to put your own price tag on it. That's the way it goes. So very, very cool. So for something a little bit more for budget conscious people, there's also this.
So this is a fantastic new set of figures that's just been announced. It's NECA's original superheroes, and they've gone back to some of the very, very old superheroes that came out in the comics way back in the 40s and 50s. And they've announced the Phantom, the Ghost Who Walks, Flash Gordon, King of the Impossible, and Ming the Merciless, of course, from Flash Gordon as well. Now, I've got to ask you something, Dags. Yep. They've used Flash Gordon, King of the Impossible. Did they use that before the Queen song? Was that actually his tagline, or did Queen come up for that and they've used the Queen lyrics?
I don't know. I would have thought it was just used for the song.
That's what I thought.
Because they also use the term Ming the Merciless, ruler of the universe, and I don't know if that was from the original show either. I need to backtrack a little bit because Thomas has given me an awesome line here. Can you bottle the bile, and the vial? You know what? We could actually get some of that, put that in the store, and put it down as bile, and just see what people say about that.
And then it can
absolutely,
be people could use it as the vial vax.
Yeah, like love this one from the vial. Leave my poor little Babu alone. No, I don't know. To be frankly honest, I have seen the original series, but like decades ago, and I just don't remember it. So
it is a good catchphrase then, King of the Impossible. So these are the new figures, and being from NECA, usually at this scale, they're quite good. And these ones I thought were particularly good. There's the front covers. I guess we did have the Defenders of the Earth that used some of these figures, but this is going back pre-Defenders of the Earth to the comic book versions, and I think they look very cool. And it is one of those where we see some of the photos they've taken. This is the Flash Gordon one, and you can see it's got different hands and accessories for sword fighting, and even what I really like, it's got 2 different laser blasts out of the blaster. So he looks really impressive, fully articulated. I think it was some crazy amount of articulation, like 32 points. And so you can see it's got like the long laser blast or just the short laser blast. But it is one of those things where there's the background to that's from the Flash Gordon movie as well. And what I was thinking is, it is one of those examples where the figures look great, but when you put them in an amazing diorama, they look even better. And they've done a really good job in selling these ones. Ming the Merciless as well comes with tons of accessories and different hands for different poses. Again, these ones I'll probably have to get into the shop because they're just awesome, and from that era and that sort of look that I really love. So Ming is very awesome. And then finally,
Oh,
Yep.
sorry, hang on. I'm just going to cut you off. The only criticism I have is that both Ming and Flash couldn't be bulked up. They shouldn't be like that, right? It doesn't really
Yeah.
work. So in the original series, they were never like that. I can understand for the Phantom, but not for these two guys. But and especially Ming, he was just a dude, really. And I do like the fact that they've got the sword fight thing going on here, which is a reflection of the original comic series. And of course, some people out there may argue that why are they in color when they should be in black and white? So if they're painted in shades of grey, that may actually have a bit more of a visual appeal. So, sorry, I'm going to go to the Phantom in a sec. Did you want to say something?
I was just going to say it's awesome that in the sword fight, Ming's sword actually has blood on the blade as well, which is pretty groovy.
Oh yeah, it does too. Oh, yeah, just noticed that. That's interesting because they, like in the movie, for example, they did actually make a point of having different coloured blood, so they could have blood like blue and green and whatever. So, but the
Yeah.
fact that that's red, that's quite interesting. Yeah, but do you agree with me though about the physical shape of the guys? That like it's a bit over the top.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where people are used to action figures being sort of that bulked up now, and they are comic books. So, but from the picture you showed, they weren't like that. I think with comic books, the more they've gone along, the bulkier they've become. You're right. Like Flash Gordon, you could get away with it because he's a quarterback, but Ming the Merciless was more of a scheming emperor of Mongo.
Yeah, it's like they've taken the whole He-Man thing and said, "Oh, if the good guy is like a big muscly dude, then the bad guy's gonna be equally muscly," and that's like not even remotely close to how it looked. But one character that does fit the physique though is the Phantom, and I've got to say, when you look at it like that, and as you said, you got all the attachments, all the doodads and whatever, it's when you start posing them, it's like, oh mate, they just come to life, hey.
It's absolutely amazing. I mean, if you're a Phantom fan, and there's a few of them, this is one of the ultimate action figures ever made. Now, I don't know how you'd get them to hold this pose you've put them in unless they were on a stand or something. And I was looking at the whip and wondering if the whip stayed in position because it was like a wire, or it was just they've done it for the shots. But again, having the background and with the gun blasts and the different poses and the different heads and the different hands, you couldn't really ask for more for a Phantom figure, could you?
Not only that, but the face of the Phantom looks grouse. It's like it's straight out of the comic book. And I thought, you know what, the physique works, the purple works, and the face works, and the fact that the eyes are white, yeah, that's really, really cool. The only thing I didn't get, I mean, you get the picture of the skull. Why did they do this? Can you explain this one to me?
I don't know. I don't know really the backstory of the Phantom, so it might be something to do with how the Phantom powers are handed down. But I'm really not sure on that. Maybe it's the origin of Skeletor. I don't. Mate, Dags, have you got an old jungle saying for us?
Yes. The Phantom didn't have any powers. He was just a normal dude. It was the reputation that he had over the centuries that everybody thought he had powers when he actually didn't. So there you go.
Yeah.
But yes, so you can sort of see them all there. And I do wonder, yeah, if you did like a grayscale on the, I could have put a black and white filter over the other two guys, Ming and Flash, and just see how it looks. But anyway, they're in color. They are what they are. And yeah, and that's how they look when they're, yeah, very, very
Well,
nice.
knowing NECA, they'll do grey variants for the second wave.
Yeah, would make sense too. So a few people here made a few comments. Hang on, I'll just. Flash looks like Buster or Sam. Well, he's more Sam than Buster, but I mean, it's clearly based on the Buster Crab version. So, yeah, that makes sense. And even Buster Crab was never that bulked up. Yeah, totally agree, Gavin. Yes, Phantom does look good. Thomas has said the same thing. Glenn has asked from YouTube, what do you reckon they'll be worth?
I would say they'll probably retail at about 49, although they have got a lot of extra pieces, so they could be 69. It also depends whether they come through the wholesalers here, which they usually do. There's a bit of a supply problem at the moment with the docks and getting stuff across, and if you get them directly from America, they're going to cost you a fortune in shipping, so it really depends.
All right, so Andrew said about the skull, alas, poor Yorick, but William has said he made the oath on the skull of his father. I get that part. I don't know why in the photograph he's put the skull on his head. That's the bit I couldn't figure out. So, yeah, I get the skull bit. So, yes, exactly right. And you're right, Mark. Action figures are getting so much better now. And they have to because people buying these things expect it. If you make cheap shit knockoffs like you did 40 years ago, people go, no, I'm not buying that. It looks crap. So they're forced to boost the quality to get the market. Otherwise, like we saw with the Batman figures, the 1966 figures recently, the closer you can get to making them look good and posable and displayable, like as you said with the backgrounds, the more likely are you going to sell the damn thing. So,
and the thing is, when figures are costing $50 a pop, it's not kids are collecting them anymore, and that's why they can do original action heroes, because no kid's like you might get some kids that go, that's cool, but 90% of kids are going to go, that doesn't transform and that doesn't light up. So they really are aimed at the adult collector market. So they have to be good.
And I have to agree that, yeah, once you display them, they're going to look fantastic. Now, with that in mind, something that is maybe not as good as these guys is this.
Useless Pop of the Week!
What have we got? That's what you do at a party on Friday night. You record your mates saying some audio. What do we got tonight, Mr. Aaron?
So this is one that popped up that if it didn't have the name on the box, I would not have known what it was. I thought it looked like almost a squirrel guy from an anime or something like that. And when I read who it was, I was like, oh, I would not have guessed this. So this week is one from WandaVision and the Avengers. Do you want to reveal it, Dags? So it's Pietro Maximoff, and he's in his Halloween costume from the WandaVision episode, and the hair is blowing back, but it makes it look to me like it's kind of got like an anime sort of, I don't know, fox person or something like that. If I was collecting the Avengers stuff, I probably would give this one a miss. I don't know what you think of it. What did you think when I sent this one to you?
It didn't register for me. What I first thought of was, like, they're obviously getting desperate at the Pops end of town. They can shit, we've made everybody. Who's left? And it's like, we'll just chuck one out there and we'll see what happens. So it's a bit dodgy, isn't it?
So it is one of those where I understand there's a lot of people that collect every different pop that comes out from the genre that they love, or they just collect every single pop. This one's got, your pop culture sticker on, so of course down the track it's going to be worth more, because it seems to be any that's exclusive to a particular store become more collectible once they've sold out. But again, this one, if it was the Flash and it was in a blue uniform and it had the red uniform and it had the speed on it like that, I totally get it. But like, this one does nothing for me. So it's another one that I would feed to Rob Bubo's Bubo dog to turn into Bubo Pudo.
So if you're, how long did you spend practicing that? So everybody out there, go out there, buy this thing, go into Aaron's store and trade for something else. So he ends up like a 5 or 6 of them. That would be pretty damn funny. And I tell you what is funny, it's time for a little bit of the old Greg King's Cheaper Things, which is the coolest episode or the segment on this particular show. So what are we talking about tonight there, Mr. Aaron?
Well, it's been a bit of a lull this week. We haven't really had a lot happen. We haven't had any more stuff turn up, and I haven't had anyone ask me to buy anything crazy, and there hasn't been anything pop up on my timeline. What has happened, though, we ordered this Alice in Wonderland amazing cuckoo clock, and we ordered it about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and they keep sending us the same message via email about be patient and wait for it. And I thought, do you know what? This is the second time they've sent it, so I'm going to read it out. And it's basically an update on our order, which is, hi, sorry to keep you waiting so long. Because the order has been increasing rapidly, it's customized and complicated dial craftsmanship. We can tell you that we have sent your parcel within 12 to 18 days and will be arranged the fast shipment for you, about 10 to 18 working days that you can receive it. If you don't want to wait, can tell us, and we will cancel your order and give you a refund. Have a nice day. So this we've got twice, but I just imagine them there, like hand carving all the cogs in the clock and putting it together. Usually, if you have a product you are going to sell, you have the product ready to go before you actually put it up for sale and sell it.
So they're carving it out of a tree, a block of wood. There's a guy there chiseling away. Ting, 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 ting. So many orders coming from around the world. Ting, ting, Aaron's Collectables is waiting for this. Ting, 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 ting.
Yes.
I absolutely love it.
So this was my reply, which is having a bit of fun with them. Dear friends at the Young, what is it? It's Young Fun Service Team. I don't know if that's actually Young Fun as in a Chinese word, or it is the Young Fun Service Team. Thank you for your constant email updates on my clock. I am super excited to receive this item and look forward to further updates. It sounds amazing, having a customized and complicated dial. I really can't wait to see the level of craftsmanship your artisans have achieved. It sounds like has been meticulously crafted. I am bound to be impressed, and I'm sure it will exceed my expectations. I'm buying this for my terminally ill child, and it is his greatest wish before he dies to have an amazing Alice in Wonderland clock. So we look forward to it arriving. Keep me up to date with any news of my order. All the best, your friend Aaron. So
You're
now
a bastard, you know that?
Well, I've put the expectation on them that it better be a good item if we're waiting for this now. I haven't got a reply to this yet. I will see if I do get a reply and what will happen.
You could have actually dangled even a bigger carrot. Oh, it's my terminally ill child. He's only got like days to go. Rob has said this. He's got shit sandwich written all over it. Oh, how's that? A terminally ill child? Oh, dude. You watch, they're going to be probably shitting themselves thinking, oh, shit, what do we do? What do you do now? Oh, my goodness gracious me. You're right, Joe. It's complete bastard. That email, just email. Absolutely. Email is just evil. Very, very good. We'll wait and see what comes up, eh? Very, very
cool. Now, we did get one more email, and this is crazy because we already got a refund from this and we got our money back through PayPal. But obviously, someone over at this company got a ping saying we got our money back and they're trying to save some face out of it or something. So after a week of having our money back, we got an email from the company who sent us the crap Trivial Pursuit game instead of the Jumanji game. Dear customer, thank you for your support and concern on our store. We noticed that you have placed an order regarding original Jumanji board game on our website. You can feel free to contact us if you have any question about this order. We will help you once we get your email. Hope for your kindly understanding. Have a nice day. And this is the great bit. Best regards, Dobby. So I'm getting like an email from Dobby. So I could not resist. Oh, Dobby, you naughty house elf. We ordered the Jumanji replica board game and received a cheap and nasty Trivial Pursuit Unleashed. Not even Polyjuice Potion could transform that turd into a finely crafted piece of art. A finely crafted piece you advertised. Kind regards, Aaron. I just thought it was funny that someone called Dobby is messaging me about this set after we've got the refund from it. And Chad messaged me earlier. I haven't seen it. He said they've got back to us and offered us 30% off another one. So we did a refund. We did a refund on the first one, and they're offering us a second one for 30% off the price we originally paid. I don't think we're going to go for a second one.
No, I don't think so. Gavin has said, I like this one. It's a new show. Yeah, Aaron's story time. Totally agree with that one. And the Vile has said, yeah, have you learned much from Aaron's evilness? Yeah, unbelievable. Yeah, bad, Dobby.
It's one of those things where, after a couple of months of doing this, I'm going to end up with all these pen friends in China that's sort of half speak English that I'm going to be typing, have to remembering what story I told them the week before because I'm weaving so many different stories with different dodgy companies over there. So we'll see how it goes and what we get back. But half of the correspondence is funnier than the items.
Yeah, exactly right. Now, I agree with Carol, 30% off more crap, exactly right. And don't forget, these items that when they do arrive are actually on display in Aaron's store. So you can actually go along and see for yourself what these things are like. So, yes, very, very cool. So that actually brings us to the old table of shame.
Yep. So nothing's really changed since last time. The last thing we got was the crap deformer, which was meant to be a transformer. We're still waiting for our Halloween mystery box, which I'm dubious is ever going to arrive because the company website is gone and I can't find any trace of them now. With the headpiece to the staff of Ra has been shipped and something will turn up. I don't know what. The artisans in China are still carving our Alice in Wonderland clock, and the tiny Tendo is on the way as well. Hopefully we'll get that for Christmas as the #1 stocking filler of the year, which they have told us. So that's where we are on the table of shame, and it was a bit of a short week on Greg King's cheaper things because not much has happened.
Even Rico's mentioned about reading the full email, so that will probably come up next time around, I suspect. So there you go. Very, very cool. All right, so let us move along so we can get into something really, really cool. And of course, it's the absolutely awesome, and it's actually talk about shows unto themselves. It's the old Vile File. And what are we talking about tonight, Mr. Aaron?
Well, firstly, it was disappointing that the Vial wasn't there on Friday night for pizza. So many people wanted to see him and who he was, but I guess he couldn't really turn up because that would destroy the mystique, wouldn't it? But as I was saying earlier, the Vial was quite disappointed this week because he was expecting Disney to drop a trailer for the Babu Frick book, which was a Disney Plus series, and it wasn't. He got it mixed up. It was Boba Fett. So what do you do when you really love something and you really wish you had something? What would you do, Dags?
You kind of cocked that up. It should have been the Book of Babu Frick, not the Book of Boba Fett. You got around the wrong way.
I just kept going so I wouldn't bring it up. But thanks for bringing me back to that. So what you do, you get yourself a tattoo, a nice Babu Frick tattoo. So this week we're looking at Vial Ink. On the Vial file, and the Vial was looking at what Babu Frick tattoo he thought he might get to immortalize his little friend on his arm or leg or somewhere else. And during his surfing of the interweb, he decided to send me a whole bunch of popular culture tattoos that make it into his sort of special level of vileness. So I think we're going to look at, is it Star Wars ones first, Dags, that he sent us? Oh, no, this is just an example of if you are a fan of popular culture and if you're really passionate about what you collect, there are a lot of people that do get tattoos of the franchise that they love. And this is some examples of some really nice tattoos. I think the first one there is Princess Bubblegum from Adventure Time, and then you've got a Harley and a Joker. And you've got a Disney one. I think that's Briar Rose from Sleeping Beauty. And there's a really amazing Grease one there that looks sort of photorealistic. There's a Dalek one, of course, which looks pretty cool. And there's a Rose and Jack from the Titanic. So they're all really fantastic examples of tattoos. And if you are thinking about getting a tattoo, it is good to do your research and see what tattoo artists suit different styles. So you can go to the one that suits the style for the piece of art that you want on you. So there's some good ones there. And here are some really nice Star Wars ones. There's some amazing Darth Vaders. I mean, I think on Talk Nerdy, you did a show on tattoos as well. But I think there's some new ones that have come up since that show. You can see people have got the Star Wars logo, and I've cut it down from what he sent me, but that's the entire crawl from Empire Strikes Back on someone's arm underneath the logo. And then there's Boba Fett and Jabba and Leia and even a Bosk there. What does Bosk say?
Gurgle, gurgle, gurgle. So the guy's got the entire crawl of the Empire Strikes Back. What's the first line of the crawl?
The dark time for the rebellion.
Very good. So, although the Death Star has been destroyed, was it Imperial forces have driven the rebel dudes from the hiding spot and pursued them across the galaxy?
Trade Federation, blockade, something or other. No one's
got
the Trade Federation one down their arm on a sleeve, have they?
Exactly right. But
anyway, but these are the ones that the Vial liked. So he kept this tattoo master in his Rolodex when he's looking to get his Babu Frick tattoo. As you can see, there's a much more artistic interpretation of the Star Wars logo. And there is underneath that probably the definitive version of a tattoo of Leia and Jabba the Hutt with green and yellow flames and some kind of vortex behind them, which is absolutely awesome. There's what looks like a zombie C-3PO pulling out R2-D2's brains, either that or putting Christmas lights on R2-D2. I'm really not sure. And then the one on the end, like the Vial really likes that, but that's a lightsaber. And when he found that out, he wasn't as interested because he thought it was something else. But so they're the top Star Wars ones that the Vial was able to find to put in his Rolodex of tattoo masters that he might get to do his Babu Frick tattoo on one of his thighs or cheeks or something. What do you think of those ones?
About the 3PO one, don't you? Yeah, it's a bit wrong.
You do. Now, he was looking at other tattoo artists that do sort of photorealistic tattoos, and there's some good ones here. There's the Joker.
Jeez.
Okay. Moving right along, there's the Jared Leto version of the Joker, which is quite a cool one. If you're into the newer Batman stuff. And underneath that, it's a little bit smaller, but you can see there's a Fiona and a Shrek. And of course, you've got Jack and Sally from The Nightmare Before Christmas, and you've got a Spider-Man, sort of a Spider-Man logo and a sort of bloody Spider-Man, which is absolutely awesome. So, what were you going to say, Dax?
So regarding that lightsaber one, yeah. So when Princess Leia was wearing a slave outfit, that's what Jabba's reaction was to us. Oh, Jesus Christ! I see your Schwartz is as big as mine. Exactly right, and I agree with you, Gavin. Yes. Oh dear.
Oh dear.
Dear.
So, I think, did we miss one there? Because there was a before and after with the there's another one with the Joker and Shrek. Is it down the track?
Hang on. With a Shrek. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. That's
yes, that must have been out of order.
Yeah, here it is.
So here's the one from the same studio as those Star Wars ones. I'm particularly impressed by the Shrek. I mean, that's fantastic. The Joker, they've used the same picture as the one on the left. The one on the right is the Vile's choice of tattoo master. He must be some kind of Sith using the Force to do it, and that's pretty cool because it's really creepy. Now the Spider-Man one makes me laugh. It's just Ryan Gosling. So I don't know what the deal with that is. Maybe the Vile will tell us what his tattoo master was thinking when he did that one. And then you've got obviously the romantic Jack and Sally, and next to that you've got the more vile interpreted Jack and Sally. The interesting thing about that is you can't really see too well on the edited picture, but the one on the left is on someone's arm, but the one on the right is directly underneath someone's neck and going down into their cleavage. So that's a very interesting positioning for that Jack and Sally sort of nightmare tattoo that's going on there. I see some of the comments. You do wish that some of those were drawn on by Sharpie and not actual tattoos that people are going to have on them for the rest of their life. But all of these are Vile verified tattoos.
I like that one from Mick. Yeah, it looks like some late night drunken texter scribbles. Yeah, and that's the problem with a lot of these things. People do go the cheap and nasty option, and of course they pay the ultimate price, and as highlighted here.
Yeah, so one of the Vile's favourite icons from the past is Marilyn Monroe, and he sent me some pictures of tattoos that he particularly liked, and I was even able to track down some of the pictures they used as reference. Now, the first one there has obviously used the famous shot of Marilyn Monroe's dress being blown up, but what they've done really cleverly is put Frankenfurter's face on it from the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And then on the other side, you've just got someone who's done the same sort of picture, but obviously gone for the speed challenge, and it hasn't come out quite right. Now, down the bottom, you've got the Marilyn Monroe from Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. And on the left, you've got someone who's taken that picture and used it as a guide for a tattoo. And they've done quite a good job if you wanted a red-headed Marilyn Monroe that looked like a Sith witch rather than the actual Marilyn Monroe. And then you've got the one on the other side, which is incredible because they've crossed Marilyn Monroe with Pigsy from Monkey and given her like this snout instead of ears. So I don't know what's going on there. And I think people actually thought they were trying to get a photorealistic Marilyn Monroe and then get a tattoo that isn't quite up to the level they were expecting.
Yeah, all four of those Marilyns look like they'd be chasing parked cars, eh? So, yeah. Unbelievable. That's just not right, is it? So, no. Goodness gracious me. Where were we? So, yeah, you're right, Gavin. Marilyn gone wrong. And you're right, Ange. Shudder. Yeah, what else can you say? But unfortunately, that's just not the end of it.
No, so here's just a selection of these ones are related to Disney, actually. You've got Disney through 20th Century Fox, where you've got some amazing Wolverines, where he's so bulky that you wouldn't want to fight him. But you've got a bulked up Hulk in the middle there that they've done the line work for. They haven't coloured in yet, but that is going to be an impressive Hulk, isn't it? Like a pinhead Hulk with tiny head and great big body. Down the bottom, I don't know if anyone recognises, you've got Dory there from Finding Nemo and the Finding Dory. And you've also got a Stitch, which for some reason says Les, but there you go. But the best one of all, you've got the Seven Dwarfs and their diamond mine. And what's crazy about that, that's like a tramp stamp that slipped down. So the diamond mine is actually the guy's butt crack, and the 7 dwarfs are going to work in the diamond mine looking for gold nuggets. And I tell you what, the nuggets they find in that mine are probably not going to be gold.
Hi ho, it's off to work we go. The worst part is they're missing a dwarf. So where did he go?
I know where Dopey is.
He's had a name change. He's gone from Dopey to Longy or Crappy. Like there's no white no more. Oh, gee, hang on, it's all got. Oh, I love it. So there you go. We move on.
And of course, if you know the Vile, then you would know one of his favourite shows is The Golden Girls. And frankly, all of these tattoos are absolutely terrifying. What I think is...
Hang on, got to stop you. Just regarding that last picture, I got to go back. That's not a diamond mine, it's a crack house. Oh, gosh.
I think that
I can't see the screen anymore. Hang on. Oh God, I got to move on before I forget. I love it.
Yes. So here is some quite horrific versions of the Golden Girls. Keep it together, Dad.
I can't. Keep going.
I think the one at the top is amazing because they've obviously done all the shading in the faces and haven't put the hair on, and I think that looks pretty awesome just like that. Then you've got like this sort of Mount Rushmore configuration, and it's obviously so popular. A couple of people have tried to do it, and each one looks as terrifying as the other one. You know, thank you for being a friend. You're not my friend if you got that tattoo.
The top one makes no sense because they've coloured in the faces but left the hair, the skin colour. So it makes no sense. It's like, were these people all blonde or something? Were they? It's just bizarre.
They do tattoos in different stages, and I'm figuring they've done the faces first and not the hair. But you'd think you'd do one golden girl at the time rather than make them look like a negative version of the Jackson 5 with like white afros or something. That's just crazy.
Or you wait until the whole thing's finished, then you post the picture online. So, yeah, exactly right. Oh, goodness, rumble. I like this one. Yeah, what's that rumble in the tunnel? Yeah, exactly right. Oh, God, yeah, right. If the mine collapses, you're certainly going to know about it, aren't you? Oh, very, very good. Good stuff. The Burton Crispy Girl's not gone. Jeez. Oh, goodness gracious me. Where we go? Where are we? I'm lost track now. Yep, go on.
And here's just a bunch of random ones from the Vile's favourite tattoo master. You've got a Scully and Mulder from the X-Files, which I guess you can tell it's meant to be them. You've got a Dr. Evil with frickin' sharks flying frickin' lasers from their head, a Scooby-Doo that looks more like a Scooby-Poo. You've got a Scarface with his little gun, which, I don't know, he doesn't look Scarface, he looks rat-faced or something. You've got Big Trouble in Little China, Jack Burton, Kurt Russell, who looks more like the Golden Girls than the one in the previous tattoo. I think you've got a Bruce Lee there with tiny, tiny little arms. I think whoever was tattooing that didn't get the perspective right. So you've got like this tattoo master, but he's more like a T-Rex proportions where he can't really do too much. And then you've got like a very, very wrong looking ET. So the selection process the Vile went through to choose who would do his Babu Frick tattoo was quite he put a lot of work into it. What am I trying to say?
I don't know what you're trying to say. But Thomas said he's having lucky he put his wine down, so he's having a bit of a hard time trying to keep up with everything. And I guess the bottom line is that ultimately, if you're worried about getting a tattoo, just wear a t-shirt instead. Make it easy for yourself. What do we say about these particular items there, Mr. Aaron?
Just before we do, if you look on the far right there, you can see the full version of the lightsaber. And you can see it's quite a short blade, so it's probably one of those lightsabers that has multiple uses.
Well, as they say, it's nothing worse when you're lacking a bit of length. So there you go. So what about these tattoos, Mr. Aaron?
So all of this ink has been well and truly violated.
Absolutely. Oh, my goodness gracious me. How good was that? Oh, geez Louise.
I
Honestly,
think
when it comes to this, when it comes to this segment, it's the audience that makes it all work. So yeah, definitely.
I was going to say after Rob's comment, it's all downhill from there, really, isn't it? So you can all go watch something else because we're not going to come up with anything as witty or funny as that for the rest of the show. But we have to move on.
Shwing. I love it. Very, very cool. All right. So we are moving on indeed. So it's time for a bit of this. Ooh, baby, do you know that's what... And this time it's actually a little bit different, Mr. Aaron. So what are we talking about tonight? We're going really left field on this one.
Yes. So guess what? We're not doing eBay, and guess what? We're not doing toys or anything like that tonight. We're actually doing prop store auctions. Now, I don't know if anyone's been following the news, but today and tomorrow and the day after, there are live auctions online and in person in Prop Store in the UK, and they're selling an absolute amazing range of movie collectibles, behind the scenes memorabilia, photos, scripts, posters, signatures, and Prop Store is quite reputable. So all of their stuff is generally Riggy-Dig, guaranteed, the actual general article. And I was watching it today just crying because everything was awesome and I couldn't afford any of it. I don't know if anyone saw any of the crazy prices on the news. There was a Spider-Man suit from, I think, Spider-Man 2 that went for $300,000. Was a highlight that I was watching earlier. But as I was watching it, I was taking screen caps of the final price on a lot of auctions. So just for this once, we're not doing eBay. We're going to do Prop Store movie memorabilia. And I tell you what, Greg King is going home with nothing.
So for this, because it's in England, they do it in British pounds. We've converted to Australian dollars, and the screens look completely different. Okay, so you'll have to just be aware of that. So there's a lot of blank spaces we've had to cover up because it shows the history of the pricing and all the rest of it. And I agree with you, Mark. Just sign over the rights to your house. It is a little bit like that. So yes, I totally agree. Good old Greg King, put your $2 away because you're not going to get anything for $2. So let's kick it off. We've got 6 items this time. I'm going to chuck in a bonus one, and away we go.
Here we go. So this is an absolutely awesome item that I would love to have. It is a Tron disc from the original Tron movie. Now, it doesn't look like the glowing disc because everything in that movie was kind of white with black highlights on, and then they added the effects afterwards to make it look glowing and awesome. So this is, you know, from the scenes where Tron's playing Tron discs in, and it's also the data files that they slip onto their back with all their memories and stuff on as well. So this is a key part from the movie. I think this is actually Tron's own identity disc. In the auction, they had Tron's helmet as well. Absolutely awesome item. What would you pay for that, Dags?
Yeah, exactly right. And don't forget, for anybody who was watching the prop store auctions, as I said, it was in British pounds. I've converted to Australian dollars based on today's currency. Yes, I think we'll sort of see what goes on. All right, so this is the real deal, Kitty. So open up the checkbook, as I say. All right, so Angie's give me 4.5. I'll just go with 4.5. Gavin's at 26. Mark is at 10,000. Joshua's at 4. Rob's at 6. Bob, good to see Bob joining the show, is at 2,000. William's at 30. Jonathan's at 16. The Vial is at 2,000. Thomas at 3,600. Mick has gone for 8,500. Carol is at 25,000. And Spankin has been, yeah, you're right. Spankin will have to give up the little dude for this. Now, Spankin, I know, has been watching the prop store auction as well, so he may have a bit of insider trading going on. Colin's at 20. Philip is at 7,500. So that's where we're at the moment. So, yes. Then, as Aaron said, there's 3 days for these auctions, and they've got tomorrow. So you've got to use the English time zones. So they've gone, I think, tomorrow and the day after. So there you go. You can check it out and see how it goes. But they start at like 2 a.m. or something like that. So there you go. And Spankin does know the answer. So Spankin, thank you for not putting in your price. All right. So it was lot 386, the Tron Identity Disc. You'll each receive an identity disc. Everything you do or learn will be imprinted on the disc, and it went for a whopping 7.5 grand.
Colin had 20,000.
Hang on, I have to have a bit of a look. No, that's all right. Anything you want to say about this? Well, Jonathan's at 16, so he's pretty
Yeah,
close.
that's
Anything you
pretty-
want to
that's
say about
pretty
this dude while I'm looking?
Oh, it's an absolutely awesome piece. All the things that I was watching today are amazing. Dave and I think, we're watching live. We both have prop store accounts, and neither of us could afford anything, but we were sort of chatting as stuff was going off, going, oh my gosh, can you believe what that went for? Oh, isn't that awesome? Kind of thing. So, yeah, I think that Jonathan got he's got the treasure in the suburbs, and he's got his Tron identity disc as well.
Very good. So the rest of the screen normally has the history of who bidded what and like the price estimation, but that was also in pounds as well. It's just too confusing to convert it. So that's why the screens are so blank. But and as you can see from the top right-hand corner, you can see the guy on the screen when he's actually doing the actual auctioning. So very, very cool stuff. All right, we move along. All right, now we had the X-Files on a couple of weeks ago. What are we talking about tonight, Mr. Aaron?
Yep, so this ties back to our show with the X-Files, and you can buy off Etsy replicas of these badges for about $10 each, but these are the original ones worn in the show by Scully and Mulder, Gillian Anderson, and David Duchovny back in the original series. These are a pair. They're in amazing condition, obviously of great interest to X-File fans, and if you want to sneak into FBI headquarters.
So if Tatiana's watching from Russia, because she's one of our writers of the week, and she was really big into the X-Files, that's how she found our show. I wonder if she made a bid for these. It'd be funny if they ended up in Russia, wouldn't it? With her, very, very cool. Okay, Gavin said 15 grand. Angie's at 3,000. Carol's at 18. Colin's at 10. Joshua's at 20. Thomas is at 9. Mick is at 1,500. Bob is at 10,500. Natasha and the little $400. Oh, Natasha, seriously, that is it. Yeah, you can keep the little dude for that one, I think. Jonathan's gone for 11. Williams at 12. Violating the X-Files, as always, is 3,500. Rob is at 10. Mark is at 9. I'm going to say, in terms of all of our eBay shows that we've ever had on this show, these are the biggest prices that we've ever had coming up. No one's chucked in like $2 from Greg King, so that's just not happening at all. So there you go. Although if Greg wants to chuck in his $2, he can, and see how we go. Oh, Mr. Phil slipped in there with 7,500, which was very, very cool. All right, so we'll move along. So it's the X-Files TV series. The actual badges that they wore in the show. How good is this? What do you reckon they went for? There is 2 of them looking very, very cool, and they went for a what? And I do have to say a whopping $24,000. Oh my God!
Can you imagine when the guy in the prop department?
Hang on. Stop. Even Spanker said, "What was Tash thinking? He has to hang his head in shame." Unbelievable. Sorry, what were you going to say, man?
Can you imagine when the guy in the prop department was cutting out the pictures of them and putting them on an FBI template and laminating them and costing all of about 30 cents? He could never have imagined that 30 years later, they were going for $23,000.
So the thing is, and it's worth noting, I was going to mention this earlier and I did forget, in the auction, there are people, it's like bargain hunt. There are people in the crowd at the time, as well as people all around the world bidding on this stuff, right? And all you need is people with a bit of money to spend, and these things can go completely crazy. So based on our standards, the prices are obscene. Whereas if you live in America, for example, they're probably considered quite cheap. So Natasha said she was a bit off there now at $400. Yeah, I think so. So and that's the reason why you're right. It is crazy and it's nuts, but that's the reason why when these things come up once, and it's important to realize that this is your only opportunity to get something that was actually screen used as the real deal. You will sell a kidney or two to get it. So if people around the world are trying to do this, then it will be a very competitive thing, and they may sell for more than what they're really worth. So there you go. Sorry, dude.
I was saying to Dags before the show, they hold these auctions once a year or every 2 years, and there are probably people who decide they're going to buy one item, max out their credit card, and then take a year or two to pay it off again before they buy the next item.
Or sell a kidney, as we said. So there you go.
Yes.
Now, what have we got here?
This is an awesome piece. This is an original Terminator 2 Judgment Day full T800 endoskeleton. So this is the full thing, the full-size endoskeleton. This is an absolutely amazing piece from one of the most popular movies of the 20th century.
Yeah, exactly right. Ange has asked if there was lost room props. You'd have to have a look, Ange. I mean, lost room has sort of come and gone. As to whether there be original props from a series that sort of like didn't really make a big impact, it's hard to say. But you never know. Maybe not today, tomorrow, but it could have been last year or next year. So, but yeah, this is a full. So this is like, imagine this. This is something that some guy, some dudes just whacked together. This is like the real deal, 1-to-1 scale endoskeleton. How grouse would this be in your house? So very, very cool. All right, I agree with you, Colin. Your kidney and your liver. Natasha's obviously realised her mistake from earlier and added a few more zeros to her zeros. 140. Angie's at 150. Gavin's at 210. Mark's at, oh my God, 500. We're getting higher and higher. Bob is at a cheap 65 grand. What are you doing, Bob? Jonathan's at 260. Thomas at 45. Hang on. I think $400. Okay. I just realized what he said. Phil said 100,000. Spankin has said he said $400 because he bought a prop and he lied about what he really paid for it. Carol's at 590. Joshua's at 100. Colin's at 250. Williams at a 175. Glenn is at $1 million. And you know what? Normally we would laugh at that and go, "That's ridiculous. Who would pay $1 million?" But you never know. You just can't trust these things. 300 grand for Rob. Where are we? And the violating the endoskeleton is the vial at 30,000. So there you go. No cheap dollars here at all. Amazing. I mean, you can imagine the shipping for this thing and the weight of it. Oh my God, it'd be insane. All right, full size T800 endoskeleton from a Judgment Day. How grouse would that be in the house? Give that to your mother-in-law and just say, "Honey, it just reminds me of you." So there you go. I love this. Hang on, replacement for Curly. Absolutely, wouldn't party as hard. That's for sure. You went for a whopping 110 grand.
Did Phil Nichols get that maybe at 100?
Yeah, I think I'm sticking with Phil for the moment. I'll have a quick look around. Anything you want to say?
Well, it's one of those things where, again, now we've mocked Greg. He'll probably find one for $2 in a garage sale on the weekend, won't he? That's just how this stuff happens. But no, that's got to be, if you were looking for a nice prop for a science fiction movie, you can't really beat an original endoskeleton from Terminator 2. That's an amazing piece. I hope that goes to a museum or somewhere like that.
Or somebody decides to donate it to Aaron's Collectables. So there you go. How good is that? But all right, we've got a couple more items to go. All right, so speaking of from the largish to the smallish, what do we got here?
Well, here's an interesting item. This is again from Terminator 2 Judgment Day. This is Arnold Schwarzenegger's sunglasses. So these are the actual ones he wore through the movie. They'd obviously have multiple pairs, but this is a guaranteed ones that were screen used, worn by Arnie during the movie. I am going to say now that this is going to be more than your average pair of Ray-Bans, and Ray-Bans can be a tad expensive.
Or there'll be a bit more than what you get at the local service station when you go in and they've got a rack of sunglasses there. All right, so Arnold, so when you put them on, you go, "Oh yeah, I feel like speaking Austrian all of a sudden," even though I don't sound Austrian at all. But there you go. All right, so what do you reckon a pair of sunnies would be worth? Very, very cool. Carol said 50. Gavin's at 56, Mark is at 15, and Natasha and the little dude, they look good on the little dude, these sunglasses at 25. Mika said 85. Thomas has said 8. Colin's at 35. People have no idea what to bid for this, hey? Joshua's at 20. Oh, look at Greg. He's chucked in the $2, mate. Well, they do look cheap shit, don't they, when you sit and look at them like that? Angie's at 4,200. Bob's at 22. Sue, good to see Sue joining the show for tonight at 1,500. Rob is at 45. Williams at 45 with a few extra. Also 45,000 as well. Jonathan's at 65. Glenn's at 1,000. Oh, I don't know. That could be a bit cheap there, Mr. Glenn. I think brand new that cost that much in the shops. Violating Arnie would be the vial at 45. And Phil is, look at these. Slipped in with a nice $2,500, $25,000, I gotta say. So there you go. I mean, it's funny, isn't it? They're just a pair of sunglasses. I agree with you. That would have millions of pairs of these floating around. But because Arnie wore them, bang, the price will go through the roof. And did they go through the roof with the price? The answer is yes, because it went for a whopping 50 effing grand, mate. What do you reckon?
Well, I reckon if I was dropping that much money on merchandise, I'd rather double it and buy the entire endoskeleton than just a pair of sunglasses. So, yeah, Carol was spot on. I think that was the first guess as well.
Yeah, she has to cough up an extra $600, but you have to sell the Renault for this, Carol. That's freaking insane, isn't it?
It is
50 grand for a pair of sunglasses. It's mind-boggling, isn't it? So, what do you do?
The thing you get trapped with when you buy these options is bid on these auctions and win as well. There's a winner's premium, a buyer's premium, and they send them their own shipping service. So if you got someone to send you a pair of sunglasses from the UK, it might cost you $30 to $40. But I bet Prop Store is going to charge you $500 to get those ones into the country. So it all adds up.
Yeah, you certainly wouldn't want these to be lying around the house and the dog decides to chew them up. That'd be sure, eh? It's like, it's like, I've just got to run to the street and get some new sunglasses. Why? Because I'll be back. All right, we move on. Oh, get a load of this.
Well, this is really interesting. This is from Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. They're his adamantium claws from the movie. So these are the genuine ones used by Hugh Jackman. They're aluminium claws from X-Men 2. So I think that's...
Well, they're stunt claws. If they're stunt claws, they may not be made of aluminium because they're actually designed to sort of like run and fall, so there'd be a safety aspect as well. The hero claws would probably be aluminium. So
true.
Claws.
They're probably just made out of adamantium.
It could be too. So there you go. So chances are they're probably rubber. So so they'll be a bit bendy and flexible. But anyway, they're the real deal. So there you go. I mean, up close you'd probably notice it, but from a distance it still looks just like absolutely fantastic. So there you go. And like it from Carol, she's not selling the Renault, she'll sell Glenn's car instead to pay for the previous item. All right. So some stunt claws, 68 from Colin. Carol's at 15, and Ange is at nearly 20. Mick's at 150. That's a fair call. Remember, they are the stunt ones, not the hero ones. 60 from William. Thomas at 1,700. 35 for Mark. Gavin's at 37. Joshua's at 75. Bob's at 38. Natasha, it's 300 grand. Hasn't she learned a lot from the $400 she put down on the very first item? Violating the adamantium clauses at the Violet, 40,000 X-bucks. I love that one. 11 from Jonathan. Rob is at 35. And Phil has gone for 70. So there you go. And there you go. And Spanker's just confirming that their shipping costs are horrendous, but he's never had an issue with these items being shipped. And Glenn is at 60,000. So there you go. So they are the stunt claws, but you can actually put them on and feel like a bit of Hugh Jackman flowing through you, if you will. So there you go. All right. So what do these reckon these went for? They went for a whopping cheap as chips, mate. They're chucking them away. 12 grand.
I thought that was cheap. I was watching those and go, I'd almost max out my credit card for a pair of genuine Wolverine claws. They've got to go for more than that down the track. But there you go. I think Jonathan's won another one.
If they were the hero ones, like the actual, like really, like as you said, the aluminium ones or whatever, they would have gone up an extra 3 or 4 times the price. But yes, I would say that Jonathan, mate, you're on a roll, son. So, well, very, very cool. All right. So now we got the bonus item, and we had to chuck this bonus item in because it's an absolute mind spin. All right. So this is completely left field, but it's not even sci-fi, but you'll absolutely love it. It is, believe it or not, a Wonka bar.
So these are an original Wonka bar from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Now, I have been on eBay long enough. 1999, I joined up on eBay. These used to sell for between $50 and $500, the genuine ones, when they turned up. And there were a lot of them because you can imagine when you make a movie like Willy Wonka, they've made thousands of these things. Now, this was quite a fun auction. I was watching this live, and the auctioneer was actually, dropping quotes from Willy Wonka. While that was being auctioned, he was going, "The suspense is killing me. I hope it lasts." And "Your Majesty," when someone would bid, which are all quotes from Willy Wonka. So this was a fun item, and it's a good way to end it up. I can tell you, though, it's a damn expensive bar of chocolate. It's more than your block of Cadbury's for $5.99 at Woolies, isn't it, Dags?
Well, it might come with a golden ticket. You never know. So there you go. Or the ticket will actually allow you to get into Cadbury. So there you go. All right. Yeah. So Gavin's gone and started off at 2,400. Natasha and the little dude is at 60,000. That's a lot of money for a freaking block of chocolate, isn't it? Angie's at 40,000. Colin's at 12. Mick is at 25. Bob's at 30. Mark is at 100 grand for a block of chocolate. Holy guacamole. 15. Yeah. How long would it take you to eat $100,000 worth of chocolate in your lifetime? Thomas is at 15. Jonathan is at 4.5. Joshua's at 15. Violating the chocolate bar. I'd like to see you violate Willy Wonka is at the Violet, 80,000. Rob's at 15. Williams at 120. Carol's at 150. Oh my God, this is insane.
Well,
So
Carol
there you
is
go. And you're right.
Carol
Yes,
is
my
on-
other half actually does work for Cadbury. So believe me, she wouldn't be paying a lot of money for a Wonka bar, that's for sure. So, which is very, very cool. So, and Phil has actually come in. There we go. He's 11 grand for this, which is very, very cool. So there you go. It's a Wonka bar. I agree with you, dude. They would have produced thousands of these at the time. So you wouldn't think it'd be worth that much, surely. But believe it or not, this chocolate bar, oh, and there we go. Glenn's just popped in there with 40 grand as well. So there you go. It went for a whopping for a chocky bar. There you go. It went for a $46,000. Oh my God.
Yes. So you need to be Veruca Salt to afford that one, don't you?
So
Carol,
off the top of
or
my head,
Glenn?
so hang on. So the vial said 40. Glenn said 40. And I think no one else is close. So, but that's insane, isn't it, dude? What do you reckon?
I was going to say Carol, who bid 150,000. You know who would be swinging around in the chocolate river if she likes chocolate that much.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, you guys can split the bar between you. So there you go. At $46,000 for, and you hold that up and show someone. So I paid 46 grand for this. They'll think, mate, you need your head read. What's the deal with that? So,
It's crazy.
Ange did Ange say 40,000? Did he? So there's three of you. Oh, okay. So
Wow.
between the three of you, you're gonna have to sort of.
Do you know
figure it all
what?
out,
If there's a golden ticket in there, they're going to have to fight it out, aren't they?
Yeah, they are to the death. So there you go. All right, very, very cool. All right, so yeah, the three of you can have some fun with that, and unbelievable. So what do you reckon? Yeah, you missed that. So yeah, the prop auction is actually on, and you can check it out even tomorrow morning if you want to, and just like lose yourself over how much
it is kind of addictive. I was at work with it on, and I ended up just sitting and watching and screen caps and just shaking my head at the stuff. There was a lot of other stuff I took screen caps off that we could have used on the show, and it was all really interesting and different. So we might bank them and use them again, or we might never go to prop store again. Who knows? But Jonathan is right. In the early days of eBay, I wish I'd picked a couple of those bars up for $500 each.
Totally agree with you. Yeah, you're right. It's hindsight is a wonderful thing, isn't it? And because it's an official auction, anybody they've got such a good name, people will go. I will definitely go there and buy some stuff. So there you go. Okay, very, very cool. All right, so it's time for us to get on to our feature presentation. And like last time, because this is all to do with good old Docky Who, I'm going to bail out of this one, and I'm going to let Mr. Aaron run the show. So, Mr. Aaron, we're running a little over time, so keep an eye on the clock if you don't mind, sir. And
No problem.
we will leave you to it. So I'll see you soon, everybody. Bye-bye.
So continuing on from last week, we're looking at the 70s Doctor Who again. We're going to go to 81 because it covers Tom Baker's era, but most of that will be next week anyway. Like his predecessor, he took the show and made it more popular and changed it from the era before. I think in Australia, Tom Baker had a lot of fans because we were the ones that sort of got Doctor Who repeated over and over through his period, sort of the Goodies and Doctor Who, or Monkey and Doctor Who, for about a decade. And because it was on up against the news, a lot of kids watched Doctor Who, because back in those days with just 5 stations, it was four channels of the news or the Goodies and Doctor Who. So it was a no-brainer to watch Doctor Who. There we have the lineup for Tom Baker's years of Doctor Who. He inherited the companion Sarah Jane Smith, who is arguably the most popular companion of the entire 55 or 60 years of the show. And he also debuted with Harry Sullivan. And even though Harry was only companion for a year, there are so many people who remember that lineup of the Doctor and Sarah and Harry because we got it repeated a lot. And then, of course, there is Leela, member of the 17 tribe, who is very memorable herself. And then the Doctor teamed up with Romana, the first Romana played by the lovely Mary Tam, and then the second Romana when she regenerated, because she was also a Time Lord, played by Lala Ward, who the Doctor, Tom Baker, eventually married in real life. We have Adric, and then Nissa, and then Tegan, that round out his years as the Doctor. And I've got a picture there because up the top of K9, because there was K9 Mark 1 and K9 Mark 2 during his years as well. And K9 was a very popular character, especially with the younger viewers. So this is the era we're looking at, and this is some of the monsters that he came up against. So his era was famous for having a lot of returning monsters that were improved on their original appearances, and a lot of new monsters. And we had the giant robot and the Wirren, and the Sontarans were back, and now the Daleks had Davros. The Cybermen got an upgrade. The Zygons, the Kralls, Sutek the Destroyer, one of my favourite villains ever. Aldred the Castrian, the Morbius creature. Robots of Death. The Master was back looking like the Grim Reaper because he'd passed his last regeneration. Mr. Sin, the Peking Homunculus, the Fendal. We've got the Crinoid there from my all-time favourite story and my favourite episode and favourite monster, the Seeds of Doom. The Melka. The giant prawn in the bottom corner there is the nucleus of the swarm, so a virus that was brought out of the micro-universe to our size. And then up the top, we've got the Master when he was portrayed by Anthony Ainsley and regenerated. Meglos, the megalomaniac cactus. The Naimon, a Famazi, and a Mandrill there. Now, there were other creatures, but I couldn't find place for the Taran Wood Beast. So this is the era, and this was some of the creatures, but we're looking at the merchandise. And the first lot of merchandise that sort of you can collect if you're looking at any era is the Radio Times and the newsprint that you can sort of cut out as if you're scrapbooking. And it is really strange that Tom Baker's era is arguably the most popular era and was popular with the public and with the critics, and it never got a Radio Times cover. So all the previous Doctors at the beginning of each season had got a cover, and if there was a big monster coming back, they might get a cover, but Tom Baker never got a cover for his entire run. So what I've highlighted there is an article on the new Doctor Who, which was one of the earliest I could find about Tom Baker, and then some of the fantastic artwork from Radio Times. There was an artist called Frank Bellamy who did the Dan Dare comic strip in Britain, and he also did illustrations for Doctor Who, and some of his from Radio Times are quite collectible, even though they're not on the cover for the Tom Baker years. A lot of Doctor Who fans still trying to find those issues. Now, the other thing that you could get straight away was the cast cards, and we looked at cast cards from the Pertwee years, and they did them for the Tom Baker years as well, but there's not as many with Tom Baker. Of course, you've got a couple of different ones for the Doctor, and you've got Sarah and Harry and Leela and Romana, but by the end of his era, they'd phased out cast cards, and they were now sending out colour postcards, which are collectible as well, but don't have the same sort of mystique as cast cards, because you can get a postcard from anywhere, but cast cards you could only get if you sent off to the BBC and they were nice enough to send one back to you. So there are people who collect cast cards. We've talked about them before. They are very, very rare and very desirable. I've had a couple over my time. I don't know anyone who's got all of them. But Tom Baker's era was the last era of Doctor Who where you could get cast cards like that. So if we go to the next slide, we're looking at Doctor Who annuals. And Doctor Who annuals are a staple of Doctor Who right from the beginning. And through the Tom Baker years, there were 7 different annuals. And I would have to say during his time, they were probably the worst that they ever got. The art in them, the artists probably didn't even watch Doctor Who. The likenesses were horrible. The stories all seemed to be that sort of, I'm writing a science fiction in primary school story with like crazy names with lots of Z's and Y's and things like that. So they are absolute masterpieces of so bad they're good. And I've collected some of the art from those years because the art is bizarre. And when we look at some of the art, you can see. Now, sometimes if they got reference photos, as you can see on the left, you've got Romana that looks really like Romana. And then you've got the Doctor underneath that on the end paper in purple that looks like the Doctor. And you've got Adric and K9. And then as we get to the middle, you've kind of got less representations of what they actually look like in the series, where the colours are not like what the Doctor would wear on his scarf. And I guess that's okay. You can have different scarves. But then when you get to the left, they've just got a picture of Tom Baker in a suit. It's not even in a Doctor Who costume. Underneath that one in the comic book bubble, you've got the Doctor and Leela step out of the TARDIS. The Doctor is just wearing a suit. Now, Leela wears skins because she's, you know, a member of the Sever team and she's a savage. And even through her travels with the Doctor, I think in Talons of Weng Chiang, he got her to dress up, but she reverted back to skins because she preferred it, and she always dressed that way. But in this comic, she's just wearing a sensible pair of white slacks and a top. And then on the top left there, again, you've got the Doctor wearing a natty pullover and a jacket, and you've got the companion, who I think was meant to be Sarah or in the story, who looks nothing like it. It's probably one of the artist's friends he's used as a model. And this is the kind of level of accuracy you would get from various annual to annual, story to story. They did have different artists, but a lot of the house artists seem to be underpaid, overworked, and knocking any art out as fast as they could. As a child, I would get these and I couldn't read them. I just thought the stories were horrible and the pictures were terrible. I just liked to get them every year because it was like a Doctor Who present you got at Christmas, but you didn't read the annuals. Now as an adult, I appreciate them as something from their time where that's how it was done. And it is actually really amazing to see sort of a different artistic interpretation of Doctor Who, which is slightly different from what it was on the screen, but it is very of its time, so it's very nostalgic looking at the annuals. Here's the last look at the annuals, where again, they were that kind of mix of stories about space, games like Spot the Difference, text stories, which often were almost the same story over and over again with just slightly different situation. The 70s and early 80s annuals, one of the artists just really liked painting skulls and skeletons. So a lot of the time, whenever there was an alien, he would just draw it as a floating skull or an animated skeleton. And the one I think is really funny is the last Tom Baker annual, where they were phasing over to Peter Davison. The cover has like a picture of Tom Baker and then a picture of Peter Davison in a circle. And then you open the first page and the artist is obviously so lazy or hasn't got any photo reference. The painting he has used those exact same two photos as reference for the inside cover. And you just think, didn't they have like a different picture they could use? But I guess that's just how it was done back then, where it really was done cheap and quick, and every single franchise you could ever imagine was pumping out an annual if you think you could sell them at Christmas. And we will see a little bit further in the presentation, there were Dalek annuals and canine annuals, so they really did try and capture the market. A lot of them were printed in the Netherlands. I don't know if that was the cheapest way to get it done, but when I go through my annuals, some of them are printed in the Netherlands, which I think is a really, really strange anomaly with the annuals. So Tom Baker had 7 annuals over his time. All of them are bizarre and amazing and crazy and crap, and they're still all relatively cheap. John Pertwee back, the annuals get expensive. Tom Baker, I think he was so popular, he sold a lot more. So the annuals are still relatively easy to find. Getting them in good condition, that can be a tough task now, especially ones that haven't got faded or damaged spines. So if you're looking for your annuals and you're looking on eBay, if they haven't got pictures on the spines, ask for them, because when they're in your shelf, probably 99% of the time, it's just going to be the spines that you're seeing. I would say probably the percentage of my store is Doctor Who, maybe 10% or less. Not even that. We've got, I don't know, 50 cabinets in the store, and maybe one cabinet is totally Doctor Who, and then we've got one wall space and some other stuff around the place. Because I'm a Doctor Who fan, probably a higher percentage than most collectible stores, but that's just because I love Doctor Who. So what we started to get with Tom Baker when it became more popular and cooler was more toys were coming out. And of course, when toy companies look for something to release fast, the first thing they do is go to old toys they've already produced and whack them out in a different color. And Marx had been very successful producing the Daleks in the 60s with Dalek Mania and the show being very popular. And they were releasing the same toys again in different colors. So when you originally had the Daleks in the 60s, they were black and grey. They whacked them out almost straight away in yellow, which maybe was supposed to be the gold Dalek, and red, which has never appeared on screen as a Dalek color, but they were in the movies. And I have got these with different color arms. I've got the yellow one with red arms and the yellow one with yellow arms. I've only ever found the red one with yellow arms. And sometimes the eye is painted. So you've got like a red pupil on the yellow ones, or a red or a yellow one on the red. But they came both. And you can also get them with different color transparencies in the cone section. So you can see the ones in the middle there, the red ones are pretty much clear. But then on the right, you can see there's one that's got a blue transparent cone section that lights up, and the green, the yellow ones I've had with red and green cones in there. So if you're a super collector of variants, you can get different variants and swap them around. They're getting quite hard to find in good working condition, and usually the attachments are missing. You can buy good reproductions, and it's getting a bit like Star Wars, where reproductions have gone into collections now, and some people are selling off their collections and not remembering if they've got reproductions or not. That's a nice way of putting it, not remembering, but not telling people that you're getting a reproduction Dalek attachment. So that's another thing you've got to be really careful. There's probably a lot more sold with reproductions than there are original now. So we're staying with Doctor Who toys, and we're going to the talking toys. And Pally Toys did a totally different Dalek. It's probably looks a bit more accurate than the Marx one. And they came out in two different colors, and they also brought out one with variants on the hemispheres, so you could get the silver one with blue or black. And they also brought out a canine. And the ingenious thing about these toys were they had a little record inside. The Dalek one, you pushed a button and it played a little record with a voice box, and it had about 3 or 4 different sayings. The canine one had more sayings because you could open it up and flip the record over like a real record, and canine would say different things on each side of the record. So you got twice as much play value out of the canine. Now, if we go to the next slide, I have a bit of a story about the black and silver Dalek. There's kind of an urban myth that there's like only 10 of them in existence. And this goes back probably to the early days of the internet, where on different collectors groups, people said, I've only ever seen, maybe 10 in all my time of collecting. And that turned into there's only 10 of these that exist. But there are a lot more than 10. I've probably had 5 or 6 of them over, 30 years of collecting. But it's interesting because nobody knows where these black and silver ones came from. But I do. They were originally produced by Pally Toys in the 70s in England. And in the late 70s, Pally Toys was moving and shutting down, and they sent a lot of their tooling to a Hong Kong production facility, and that's Tommy Toys. And they were produced there after they were produced in the UK. Now, in 1997, I went on a toy buying expedition to Hong Kong. Hong Kong had just been handed back to China, and it meant that flights over there were super cheap because no one knew what was going to happen. They thought the Chinese army was going to march in and everything was going to be in upheaval. But that didn't happen. But it meant that tourism was pretty cheap because they wanted to get people back. And I went over on the express reason to buy toys. And I didn't think I'd find much Doctor Who because in 97 was sort of not much Doctor Who around at all. And I went over twice within about a month doing toy buying expeditions. And I made a contact in a toy shop that actually used to work for the Tommy factory. And all he had, Doctor Who-wise, was a black Dalek shell. So it didn't have the innards in that talked, but it was just a black Dalek shell. And he told me the black ones, the silver ones with the black balls, were the test ones where they were recalibrating the machines. So they were printing them out, or I say printing because we do printing now, but they were producing them, and they were just being produced as tests. And when they got to the point where they were good enough to go to a production run, then they did. But the ones that were just used as tests. They didn't use, and he had one that he gave to me, and sure enough, you couldn't. I thought, I'm going to get a voice box from a different color one and drop it in, and I'll have a complete Dalek. But even though the one I've got looked 100% legit, the voice box didn't fit in because it was a factory second. And he said when they got to the point that they were good, they would have all been shipped. So there might have been 500 or 600 that were in that test run that were good enough to be shipped, that had the black balls on, and then they went back to the blue balls. So there you go. There's a myth busted about the Palitoy Dalek. So we're going to watch a little video here.
From outer space, the famous TARDIS brings Time Lord Doctor Who and the amazing Leela, ready to do battle against their mighty enemies, the fearful Cyberman, the giant robot, and one of the deadly Daleks. Whilst Leela covers him, the Doctor reaches the TARDIS in time and disappears to escape from the Dalek. Doctor Who, Leela, the fearful inhabitants of outer space, and the TARDIS. From Dennis Fisher. Fantastic.
Now, the most interesting thing about that is when I first saw that ad, I realized that I'd been pronouncing Dennis Fisher wrong my whole life. I always thought it was Denny Fisher, like the Blondie song, Denny, Denny. But it's interesting to see that ad because the Doctor sacrificed Leela to escape in the TARDIS, and she probably got exterminated by the Daleks. Now, by far, Dennis Fisher action figures are probably the most famous toys that were produced for Doctor Who during the 70s. They're highly collectible. They look fantastic. And as we could see from Jonathan's collection, when you've got the set and display them, it's still an amazing toy set. Now, there was a lot of fan myths going around about these as well, because the Tom Baker figure doesn't look 100% like Tom Baker. And it was kind of theorized that the Avengers, the new Avengers, were getting a toy run back in the 70s. And we're looking at a slide now with Dennis Fisher, an article on him, and then some of the toys that were produced by him in the 70s. And there was a space line, and they got the Bionic Man license and did that in the UK. And you can see in a Toy Fair magazine there that Steed and Gambit and Purdy were going to be produced for the new Avengers. And there was a rumor going around that the Tom Baker head sculpt was dropped, and because the new Avengers toys didn't actually happen, they just used the Gambit head for Tom Baker. But that's absolutely not true, because a couple of years ago in South Africa, they found, if we go to the next slide, that the toys did come out in a very limited run. So here is the Toy Fair ads and samples and prototypes for the Doctor Who line. So I don't think these have turned up. Before they produced toys, they produced one-off prototypes, and this is the robot that looks amazing compared to the one that came out. I mean, the one that came out is still a great toy, but the robot on the bottom left there looks like it's made out of metal and is a lot more accurate to the design that was in the series than the one that we eventually got. The Cyberman is also probably slightly better than the one we got. It doesn't have a nose, which the one that went into production eventually did. And the Dalek is a different version of the Dalek there with different paint scheme. So Doctor Who was a big property and sold a lot of these toys. In Australia, I remember seeing the Tom Baker doll or action figure. And I know that Merv Binns, who ran Space Age Books, did order some of the other ones in for the UK. So even though they didn't get a release here generally, apart from Tom Baker, you could get them here, I guess, if you went to a toy department manager and got them to order them in. For those people who are interested in what was released in Australia and what wasn't, I have had people say to me they remember seeing the Palitoy Dalek here. The Dennis Fisher Dalek. I don't think it was the Dennis Fisher one. I think it was the Palitoy one, because the Palitoy ones were definitely released here as well around the same time. And I found a lot of them sort of out in the wild in people's collections, but I've never found the Dennis Fisher one in Australia in anyone's collection who bought it locally in 40 years of collecting. So that's kind of one of those things that proves to me it probably wasn't released here. So they actually made the range here. They made the Doctor and Leela, the robot, the giant robot, the Dalek and the Cybermen, and all of them have those amazing sort of retro 70s box with box art that's fantastic. All of them are incredibly hard to find now. The Doctor is the most common out of the set. Probably the Dalek might be the hardest, but after the Doctor, they're all very hard to find. I don't think they sold a lot of Leelas because it goes back into that territory where at the time little boys weren't really buying the Leela doll because it was a doll, but I'm sure a lot of sisters bought them, which probably means the hair was all styled and all that kind of stuff, which always sort of seems to make girls' toys a lot harder to find than boys. If we go to the next slide, we can see they also produced the TARDIS, which we saw in the ad, which used the same mechanism as the transporter from Star Trek, from that sort of popular episode of Big Bang Theory where Sheldon opens the transporter and uses it and breaks it. It was the same thing. You'd put the Doctor in, you'd spin the light on the roof, and if you push the green button, he would appear. If you push the red button, he would disappear. They also produced a K9 a little bit later in the line, probably just a year after he was the only addition to the line. They were planning other stuff. I spoke to some people who said they knew they work in the industry and they were going to do a master. The interesting one, I don't think I've ever seen anyone mention anywhere, or even you would have thought. They said they reckoned they were going to produce a Kral, which is like a rhino type of alien from one of the Doctor Who stories in the 70s that was just a one-off monster as well. So I don't know if they would have done that or not, but the person I was speaking to remembers thinking that was one of the ones that was on the drawing board as well. So the Denny Fisher line, if you collect Doctor Who toys, is one of those sort of essential lines to try and track down and have a look for if you are serious about the 70s stuff. It's probably the most popular of the vintage toy lines, unless you're a Dalek collector. If we go to the next slide, Dennis Fisher toys were really big. There was promotion in a lot of different magazines. You can see in Buster Comics, you could, I think it was name the aliens and you could win the full set of Doctor Who action figures. And there was a cover on the front of the Buster magazine, and then it made the cover again when they announced the winners a couple of weeks later. So Doctor Who was big enough at the time that it was a draw card for kids comics to give the prizes as giveaways. And I think in the older comics, you see they use Doctor Who to give away a TV set or Doctor Who to give away something like a bike, but it was popular enough at the time that the Dennis Fisher toys were a good enough prize that they could use the figures themselves as a major draw card for kids to buy the comic. So it is very cool to see that at the time, the sort of popularity the show was getting when Tom Baker was the Doctor. And here's just shows you some of the diverse things that were coming out around that time. There was colouring books and press out books where you could make your own diorama. I think the press out book is interesting because it's one of the few things that has Mary Tam as Romana in the merchandise. And the Daleks were back. I think Genesis of the Daleks was quite popular. And so you had licensees doing Dalek colouring books again, which they hadn't done for a long time, sort of since Dalek Mania. So there was a wide range of books coming out at the time, sort of that were at every single price point. So you could buy them with your pocket money, or there were other books that cost a little bit more. And so we talked about the Doctor Who annuals. World Distributors brought back the Dalek annual, and the difference between the Doctor Who annual and the Dalek annuals are absolutely staggering, where the Dalek annuals have fantastic covers, fantastic artwork, great articles. They have better stories than the Doctor Who annuals. It is like whoever was in charge of the Dalek annuals, or if Terry Nation maybe cared a bit more than the BBC, because he's the guy who created the Daleks and retained the copyright. But the Dalek annuals were a lot better and a lot nicer than the Doctor Who annuals. They often had the same kind of mix of stories and comic books and things like facts about space. But when we came to the Daleks, you can see there that they had cutaways of the Daleks and how the Daleks operated and how Dalek society worked and things like that. So if you were a fan, they were infinitely better than the Doctor Who books, which would dredge out the same old stories about the Gemini project or something like that and NASA. So the Dalek annuals are quite popular as well, and they were popular enough that they got an extra 4 of them out in the 70s when there were only 2 Doctor Who stories that featured the Daleks during Tom Baker's run. If we go to the next slide, I've actually collected some of the original artwork from the Dalek annuals, and there's some of the pages I have from I think the 79 annual. I have an entire story that was part of the annual, and you can see I've got, I think it's 6 pages in full color, and that's the original artwork, and it comes with all the little speech bubbles that are written and stuck on individually on top of the artwork, and then there's sort of paper sheets on the top of it to preserve it. What's interesting is the artwork is much more stunning in real life than it is when they reprinted it in the books. So that's me showing off some of the unique items I have from the era, but that's one of my favorite ones because I love the annuals and I love artwork in general, and that's one of the 70s original pieces that I have.
So I've decided to reappear because of this. I didn't realise you had the original artwork. So one, how easy or hard was this to obtain? And 2, from a price perspective, was it like, once again, having to sell a kidney for it?
Well, it's like, I guess with like all artwork, if you collect comic book art or whatever, it's easy to get, but it's hard to get good pieces. And I got this because it was a full story. Usually you see pages available, but usually you don't see an entire story up for sale in one go. There's a friend of mine, and he's a well-respected Dalek collector in the UK called Mick Hall, and I bought it off of him. And it was one of those things, he put it up on eBay, and I contacted him and said, I really want to buy these, but can you take it down? And it'll take me about a month to get the money together to afford it. And he was nice enough to say, yep, sure. And that's what happened. He took it down, and I sold on eBay for a month and then go, there you go, Mick. Now you can send me across the artwork. So I think it's one of those things, like all things. I got that one because it was the Daleks. It was in color. It was a full story, and it was like a piece from my childhood. So I already admired the artwork anyway. That was from the 70s. Stuff from the 60s is a lot more. I have one piece from the 60s, and the one piece from the 60s cost me more than 6 pieces from the 70s. So yeah.
2 things. So Jonathan said that's pretty brilliant, and I can certainly attest to that as well. And Marcus said that they would look good framed. Have you ever thought of getting them framed?
I would get them framed if I had somewhere to hang them, but I don't have the wall space at the moment, so it would it's not really worth it. But I probably will get them framed at some point. I don't know if I've just got them. Yeah, so
while we're live on air, there we go.
There we go. They're just
hang on, wrong button. Hang on, wrong button. Hang on, there we go.
So there's
very cool.
So that's so 3 of them I have sitting down sort of in a folder, and then 2 of them I have sort of sitting up on display. But that gives you an idea of,
you know what, whether you can hang them or not, I'd still get them framed just to protect them. So there you
go. I think you're right. So
very good. All right, we'll move on, and I'll bow out again.
No problem. So I think we got a preview. Some of the books that came out at the time. Now, people might notice we haven't really looked at the Target books that were going gangbusters at the time, and it was the beginning of the Target era. They'd sort of had 1 year with John Pertwee, and then they absolutely exploded. We are going to do an entire show on the hardbacks and the paperbacks and the art and, the history of Target books, because it would be doing it a disservice to try and do it as part of the Tom Baker era, because there is so much to talk about. So we will be doing that. Watch this space. But here's some of the ones we are going to show from the era. What's your 60s item? It is the end paper, or the end page from the Dalek Outer Space book, or it's a double page of a spaceship in space fighting the Daleks kind of thing. So it's a really nice piece as well. So these are some of the books that were available during the Tom Baker years that I grew up and absolutely loved. The Terry Nation Dalek Special was one of my favourite paperbacks. I forget about this. I'd go and collect a Target book, once a month as pocket money. And I remember going into Collins Booksellers and they have the Dalek Special. I'm like, what the hell is this? And, Target books some of them have a couple of line drawings in, but this was full of pictures and comics and history of the Daleks, and I had never seen anything like it. And of course, we didn't leave the store without it because those type of things, if you didn't get them when you saw them, they tended to disappear. There was we've got the second Doctor Who monster book. There is the first Doctor Who monster book we're going to look at after this, interestingly enough. And then there's a book like the Dalek Special, but it's the Adventures of K9 and Other Mechanical Creatures, which kind of looked at all the robots and robotic aliens in Doctor Who, which was another cool book that was sort of the sister book to the Dalek Special. And down the bottom, you can see they had a Dalek story in the Dalek Special, and then they went through all the different aliens, a mixed bag of monsters in the monster book, which had a lot of art from the paperbacks as well. And then the K9 book had some new art of the internal workings of K9. And it makes me laugh now because I look at that and I think, boy, the BBC did a really good job. They were really, really high tech. Like, younger me didn't realize that was just some artist making up whatever was inside K9. I actually thought the BBC had actually done something like that. And then you look back at it and you laugh at yourself because, of course, it's just like a treadmill with a remote control. It's nothing so high tech at all. So some of those books are very nostalgic for me. But last week we heard a little bit from Phil Nichols about the making of Doctor Who. I also asked Greg King about what Doctor Who merchandise he thought was the best. And Phil mentioned this book as well, but Greg gave me sort of a much more in-depth answer as why he thought it was his favourite piece. Now, I'm going to have trouble reading it. The Doctor Who monster book would have to be my favourite item of 70s merchandise, being of significant nostalgia value in my something of Doctor Who journey. The journey started in an early 70s, and for most of that decade, what I knew about Doctor Who was limited to what I managed to see on TV. In August 1976, however, the monster book became the second item of merchandise I ever bought, and the first being a Target novel purchased a year earlier. The book opened up the world of Doctor Who to me far beyond what I had imagined up into that point, and became one of my most prized possessions. I devoured that book over and over, including staring at the wondrous covers of Target novels, which were on the back cover. Now, the monster book was pretty unique at the time. It was a book of monsters from Doctor Who, and it was released by Target, who did the novels at the time. And you can see the back of the book there in the middle, which shows the Target novels were out at that point. And I did the same as Greg. I remember getting that book and looking at the back and absolutely freaking out by seeing the original covers of the Target books. Like, now it just seems crazy, but at the time, when you could only find these things, in book exchanges and by hunting around, and there was no internet, some of the covers I had never seen before, and they were on the back of the monster book. It also had a fold-out poster that was pretty unique at the time. It was the same as the illustration on the cover. And you can see Greg's versions there that he sent pictures to me. He still has his original one from when he was growing up. And you can see down the bottom that he was always the king of the $2 shop. I think it says his tag is still on it. And I think it's like $2.65 or $2.45, and he's got his name written in it as well. So he's still got his original book, which is well done, Greg. I have here, if you put up the screen dags, this is the reprint of the monster book, which is the one I got because by the time I was collecting, they'd done an updated version, which was pretty much similar. But the back of that had the Target poster giveaway on. And I'm pretty sure I did right away for it as soon as I saw the monster book, and still have the posters that are on the back in my collection. So Greg and I both really loved that book growing up, and so did Phil. He mentioned that was one of his favorite items of merchandise as well. So there were a lot of other books at the time. Like I said, we're going to do a Target episode, But this is some of the other things that were available during the 70s. Now, the original 60s books had come out, and they were the Daleks and the Zabi and the Crusaders, and White Lion publication reissued them. And what's really unusual about this, even though they were William Hartnell, the first Doctor stories, they reissued them with Tom Baker on the cover. So yes, he got it from the newsagents, and he even remembers where he got it from, which is one of those unique quirks that collectors have, where I think one of the fun things about collecting is remembering through a piece of merchandise where you were and where you purchased it at the time. So that's why collectors often can't let go of anything, because there's too many memories attached to them. Even if they can upgrade it to a better version, it's still nice to have your original. So these are the Doctor Who books reprinted by White Lion. And then to the side of that is the Dalek Omnibus, which was a large format hardback that reprinted some of the Dalek stories, but it was re-illustrated and redesigned. I think it was brought out by Woolworths over there in the UK, actually. And what is amazing about this is the illustrations, and it really did bring a totally different reading experience to anyone who had read the non-illustrated Target books, because often that would leave a lot to the imagination. But when you have these vivid lime green Davroses and bright coloured Daleks, it's sort of almost a more psychedelic reading of those books. I'd love to get some of the original artwork for that, because it really is fantastic. Now, down in the bottom left, Doctor Who had made a bit of an impact in the States by this time, because by the end of the Tom Baker run, PBS had started showing a lot of his stories, and he was getting a bit of a following. And some of the original conventions over there go back to about 1978 when he was the Doctor, and they released 2 hardback omnibus editions. All of them were reprints of English ones, but what I do think is cool is they have really unique covers that are quite different from the UK versions. And again, they're very of their time, with the illustrations being sort of very 70s science fiction that you would find in bookshops back then. The English omnibus, which is in the centre there, is very boring. Cover, just a white with the Doctor Who logo, which is interesting, because I do remember seeing that book was on different book lists and you could get it from collectible shops. And when I did eventually get one, I'd never seen one. I was really disappointed that it was just a white cover with the same stories in as the paperbacks, and not very different at all. But all those books they look quite fantastic when they're put together like that, and they're an amazing example of what was being published in the 70s, and all of them are quite hard to get in good condition now. Sorry, yes, for those people who aren't Doctor Who fans, Target was a publisher in the UK. Target was not the chain store that we have here, although Target here often did sell the Target books, but they weren't affiliated. So you could tell the Target books, whenever I was hunting for them and collecting them as a kid, you'd go into a book exchange or you'd go into a secondhand shop and you'd scan for the Target logo, which was on the spine of each one of the books, and it made them very easy to identify very fast. And I remember when I was going and doing like 10 book exchange in the city, running up to the science fiction section, scanning for the Target logos, not seeing them, and just going straight back out again. So yeah, Target is the publisher. W.H. Allen and Wingate and Longbow did the hardbacks over 20 years, and Target has always done the paperbacks. And Target came back because the BBC still produce Doctor Who paperbacks, and they own the Target copyright or the Target company through multiple takeovers through W.H. Allen, and then that went to Virgin, and then they got Virgin, and then they worked out they own Target. So the last couple of years they've been filling in the Target novels that didn't get completed in the show's original run. So Target is still going. It must be one of the longest running series ever, starting in 1964 and having its last issues earlier this year. Now, one of the annuals that came out was The Amazing World of Doctor Who, and this wasn't done by world distributors like the other annuals were. It was done as a tie-in for Typhoo Tea, and Typhoo Tea did a Doctor Who promotion where you could get cards in each of the packs, and then you could send away for the poster and stick the cards to the poster. And then they also released The Amazing World of Doctor Who annual, which has an absolutely stunning cover. You can see they've used it on a lot of the promotion there. I think I've got a copy of the annual here. I didn't put the annual because it was like another picture of the same thing on there. But the Amazing World of Doctor Who annual is a bit different again because it has a lot of picture stories on the actual show. You can see they actually have photos from the series, which the Doctor Who annuals generally didn't, and you would get like different picture stories on some of the monsters that were featured in Doctor Who at the time. So they obviously used the world distributor pattern and probably got the license to use some of the stories from that and made their own annual, but that tied in with the tea and the cards. Now it's interesting, the annual is the easiest part of the promotion to get. The cards are hard, but you can still get them. The poster is really hard to get. You're looking sort of hundreds of pounds for the poster. And then any of the packets of tea or any of the advertising, you're looking at many hundreds of pounds to get because nobody kept that stuff. So it's just really impossible to find. So it just does show that, you have a promotion and then the actual promotion part is worth more than what you could get through the promotion. Tom Baker had a lot of food and chocolate tie-ins, what we're going to look at, and some of the art for this is absolutely amazing. So I think we're staying at tea time or breakfast time, and the next one we're going to look at is, I think, Weet-Bix or Weetabix. In the UK they had Weetabix and we have Weet-Bix. Weetabix did a couple of different promotions for Doctor Who. Now Weetabix in the UK were absolutely amazing. They, for probably 20 years, did promotion after promotion of different franchises, and they did Star Trek, Doctor Who, Close Encounters. I don't know if they did Star Wars and a lot of other stuff. If you give me the screen for a second, here's another one of the cool Weet-Bix franchises I have in my collection, which is the Sam Jones Flash Gordon movie. And again, you could get the cards and the albums for that. But that's just one of the other Weetabix promotions I have. Now, what's really interesting about the Weetabix cards, they had one year where they sell the action figure, not the action figures, but the cutout figures. And on the backs of the boxes, they had different displays you could display them in front of. So you could display the box and it's the TARDIS console, then you cut out the figures and you can use the figures in the diorama to make up your own stories. They also had a cutout TARDIS, so you could make a 3D TARDIS. Now, it was apparently one of their most successful movie tie-ins ever. And if we go to the next card, or the next slide, you will see, it's a bit hard to read, on the left there, in the trade magazines, they are saying that Doctor Who was one of the most powerful promotions ever from the year before and one of the biggest boosts to breakfast cereal that they had ever had, which is quite amazing. It could be hyperbole, of course, but the breakfast, whoever analyzes the breakfast sales have spoken, and they said, this is what you want to do and this is what you want to order for your next tie-in. And Weet-Bix came out again, and I think these cards were even more amazing and even more artistic than the first year. And there was a board game on the back of each of these Weetabix boxes, and then if you collected all four and cut them out, it made one big board game. And then they gave away sets of cards, and you could use the cards to play on the board game, or you could just collect them. They are stunning pieces of artwork, and the cards are harder to get than the Typhoo tea cards because they came in strips of 4 and they get ripped apart, so it's very hard to find the untorn original ones. And then the promo advertising for this is crazy. I think I've only seen 2 of them ever for sale, and both of them went up to about £500, so about $1,000 at the time, and they'd probably go for more now because there hasn't been one on the market for a long time. So artwork and nostalgia is very popular with collectors. Now here's a really interesting one. They did a tie-in for Doctor Who and baked beans, and so you could get Doctor Who baked beans. You could actually go into the shop and get like the I think it's Cross and Blackwell baked bean cans that had the Doctor Who promo on, and if you ripped it off, on the back it had what you had to do to send in and get your Doctor Who poster, or your Doctor Who build a TARDIS kit, or your Doctor Who, no, and then there was an electronics kit that didn't have anything to do with Doctor Who at all. But what actually stuns me about this is any of them still exist. Now, I used to keep a track of everything that sold on eBay, and in about 10 years, one of these wrappers came up, not a full can, but one of these wrappers came up, and it went for more than I could afford, like just an empty wrapper off a baked bean tin. And some of the TARDISes turn up. I don't think I've even seen the poster for sale ever. And then there's a big collector, Chris Hill, who runs the Space Museum website, and he managed to track down a box of these Doctor Who baked beans, and there's a box there that I've taken from the Space Museum site because I think he's the only one in the world to have them. Now, I don't know how those beans would taste anymore, but probably they're a little bit out of date. But it really shows you how big Doctor Who was at the time that they were even doing tie-ins with baked bean companies. And here's another one of the food tie-ins that they had, and these are also really hard to get. This is the Nestle Milk Chocolate Doctor Who chocolate bars, and you can see there it was a bit like the John Pertwee ones, where you could collect the whole run, and every wrapper would have a different comic on, so you had to keep collecting them till you got the whole comic. There's only a tiny little bit of illustration on each one, but the illustration is still fantastic and very brightly coloured. These turn up very, very rarely. The wrappers are pretty hard to get, and the boxes are impossible to get. There are a lot of people who are selling reproduction ones though, and I guess some people like that, but I tend to stay away from the reproduction stuff. But that's another one of those items that some people might not have known was out there for Doctor Who. I don't think we got them in Australia. I've never seen them here, but they were available in the UK at the time. And here we go. We've sped through this to hopefully.
Sorry, I really cocked that up. I was going to ask you a question. Sorry, I really balls that one up. So I'm just going to go back and fix this. So there you go. So just quickly, so the Doctor's driving Bessie. Did Tom Baker ever drive Bessie, or was it just a Tom Pertwee car? John Pertwee car?
He did drive Bessie in his very first story in Robot, and it's really interesting because there's jigsaws of him driving Bessie, and there's posters of him with Bessie and stuff. So I kind of do associate him with driving Bessie, but he only really did it in one episode. So he really didn't do it that much, but they did get it right. He did drive Bessie.
Yeah. Sorry for the epileptic fit we had a moment ago with the screens flashing. So we're down to the last slide, actually.
And this is one of the cooler things that I didn't know there was a lot of merchandise around, but there isn't. It's the Dalek Death Ray ice lollies. And of course, they used to brand any ice lolly with different franchises to try and make it sell a bit better. And this was the spine-chilling lolly, the Dalek Death Ray. And there was a lot of promotion for this. And this is quite a hard one to collect. I've had quite a few of the wrappers, but I haven't had all of them. And there is about 20 different variants of the wrappers. And then once in a while, when I think I've seen them all, I'll find a different one. Now, what is interesting with this, they had a competition, and it was win a real life-size Dalek. Now, through the 60s and sometimes in the 70s, they did these competitions, and it was usually for a movie Dalek or maybe for a TV one. I think it was mainly the movie ones. Being in the 70s, I thought, wow, I wonder what style Dalek you'd get. But apparently one of them turned up, and it isn't one from the series or the movies at all. It's like a homemade one that the ice cream company made, and in the bottom right hand corner there, it went to auction, and it's kind of this sort of very bastardized version of a Dalek with a short skirt section, and it opens at the back so the kid can climb inside. And then it's got, I think the original middle section was damaged, so they redid it, and then the top section is original with reproduction arms and an eye stalk. But that turned up and went to auction. I was absolutely stunned because, you know, if a kid wins that, usually within in a week or two, you're going to roll it round, and your friends will tip you over and be rolling you down the hill kind of thing. So I was surprised that turned up. But again, you've got the advertising and the wrappers, and everything to do with this promotion is incredibly hard to find. And I think it's a really nice looking promotion too. So I think we've hit 10 o'clock, and we're about halfway through the merchandise that was associated with Tom Baker.
So with those Dalek things at the end that your kid can get inside, you reckon there's a little warning message saying this is not a toy, not to be rolled down a hill, and don't try and take over the universe and all sort of stuff. Now, for those people who are watching, if you can read the tiny text, how to lick a Dalek, that's definitely one for the vial file, don't you think? So I reckon the answer to that question is slowly. What do you reckon?
You start at the exterminator, of course.
Yeah, exactly right. There's a whole lot of comments about the whole beans thing. So, Doctor Who baked beans, eh? If you want to time travel, that eat a couple of cans of those. So they'll do.
Well, I tell you what, if you ate a couple of cans of those, you'd want the TARDIS to be bigger on the inside, wouldn't you?
Absolutely love it. So there you go.
But
you are right. It is actually
line. The classic line. Hey Davros, pull my finger.
Pull my suction cup. Yeah, exactly right. So there you go. Oh dear, they are the superior beans after all. Very, very good. All right. Any final words before we wrap up the episode for tonight?
No, just thanks everyone for being here again tonight and watching me ramble on about Doctor Who for an hour. I hope you've enjoyed the pretty pictures and seen some of the merchandise that was available. Dags, what did you think, not being a convert to Doctor Who fan?
Oh, no, it was really cool. What I thought was funny at the very start of the segment when I said I'm going to bail out, Greg King comes up with a message that says, yay. It's like, yeah, okay, thanks, Greg. There's a thing of support for you. No, it was really good. I actually got into the Tom Baker era. I didn't watch a lot of it, but what I did watch, I really enjoyed. And I was a huge devotee of Genesis of the Daleks and Ark in Space. Absolutely love those episodes. And for me, that's Doctor Who as I remember it. But it was just the time. It was on the same time as the news, and we had one TV and all sort of business. So, but yeah, what I did say, I did enjoy it. And I do believe, and I agree with you, that Tom Baker is the epitome of the entire franchise. It's like if it was just him and nobody else, the franchise would still be just as successful. So, yeah, which is very, very cool. And it's with that in mind, we're going to be more Tom Baker stuff next week. So there you go. It's kind of funny. Tom Baker, and he was selling baked beans. Go figure. So Tom Baked Bean, whatever. Getting a bit out of control. All right. So any final words before we bail out for tonight, Mr. Aaron?
No, like I said, thanks for being here. We'll finish this off next week and then get back into general science fiction and collectibles the week after.
Very, very good. And in the interim, make sure you keep all your TARDIS collectibles mint in box.
Or rip them off the card.
Okay. See you guys. Take care.
See you.